Welcome to the Stable Minded Podcast. I am Bob Griffin, and along with my co-host Gabby Greco, we're glad to have you along for this episode. Today we're sitting down with someone who doesn't just participate in the horse industry, she powers through it. From growing up in Northern California to winning the Three-Gaited Stake at Louisville, Mary Orr has seen it all, lived it all, and isn't afraid to talk honestly about it all. Some may consider her a force of nature with a clipboard, but I'm lucky enough to consider her a friend. She's a trainer, business owner, breeder, clinician, writer. Somehow she does all of it. She's even helped run a quote-unquote fun show that raised nearly $150,000 for William Woods University. And now she's setting her sights on the long-term sustainability of our industry. Candid, smart, unfiltered. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. So tell us about how you got started in horses.
I got started, well, first of all, if you were to ask people at William Woods, I was originally Mary Jane Markham, and I'm from Fall River Mills, California, which is rural Northern California, which means we are like close to the Oregon border, and we're 52 miles from Mount Shasta, which is a ski resort. So when people think California, I think of three sections of California. Most people think of like Northern California and consider like San Francisco. If you are at San Francisco, you're going to go 7.5 hours north. So that's kind of, rural Northern California. And I started with rodeo, and I was very, very, very in love with horses. And I was very, very, very bad at rodeo. And so I was the girl. My parents bought a horse. They thought it was 12 years old. It ended up he was 20. He broke his leg. His name was Red. And my mom was at school. She was a school teacher in Fall River Mills. And she said to her friend, my daughter loves horses. The old horse that we have has died. And Mary loves horses, but she is kind of slow when they do barrel racing. And she knew a lady named Shirley Hall. It was in Red Bluff, California, who was 2 hours away. And she actually did Arabians. And she gave us her name and phone number. And we drove to Red Bluff, California, and that's where my story really started. And we drove up, and she had a couple horses for sale. And the horse that she had for sale that was supposed to fit our bill was a horse named High Caliber. Hence, you will remember High Caliber Stables. And
Yeah.
so, and it was, High Caliber was, I rode in Western, and I rode in Lady Side Saddle, and I rode in Trail, and I rode in Hunter, all on the same horse. And yes, Bob's laughing because that's me. And so, and Shirley was as tough as they came, very small barn. And I went there from the basically every weekend. My parents would drive the 2 hours, drop me off, and I'd stay with her. And then I would come home on Sunday. And that's how we showed horses. And then when I was 14 years old, December 22nd, I had a brother. His name was Jeffrey Allen Markham, and he was an avid skier. So one parent would go with the skiing, and one parent would go with the horses. And we had not much money, but they gave everything they had to what we loved. And my brother drove for the fourth time by himself. This was the first time he got to drive by himself. And he was on his way home, and 15 minutes before he called our house, and he said, "Tell Mom and Dad I'm on my way." And about an hour later, my mom got a phone call. That phone call was about a car accident. And my brother died. And he was 5 miles from home. And we followed the ambulance to the hospital. He had a friend in the car who survived. And they were, again, rural hospital. And the first phone call I made was to my horse trainer. And so my whole existence and survival of that grief and loss was through my horse trainer and my horse High Caliber. And so I told my dad, who has a PhD in plant pathology, I was going to be a horse trainer. He said, "That's great. You have to go to college." Applied to 11 schools. And if anybody knows Dan Markham from Fall River Mills, California, they know that we went to every single school. And we looked at every single equestrian science school. I got to Stevens College. They thought that was going to be the spot for me. My visit didn't go as planned. And if you know, the group bred and a man named David Gates, who was in Fall River Mills, California. His wife, Jarita, said, I think you should look at William Woods University. And so while in Missouri, we went to William Woods University, and I met a lady named Gail Lampy. And hence the story of Mary Orr going to William Woods University. And Miss Lampy liked my personality and was my freshman advisor, and told me to go from not take Western, that I could take saddle seat. And I said, that sounded great. And for anyone that knows me, I have a lot of personality, and that's kind of how my story got to me with saddle seat. And I thought that the minute I sat on a saddlebred, had touched in saddle seat with Moravians, but the minute I sat on a saddlebred, that was it. And the story goes from there.
You were hooked.
Yep.
That's amazing. So just kind of going back, like your junior exhibitor years probably looked a little different than someone who did start with saddlebreds. Did
Yes.
that look like 4-H shows or just little Arabian shows?
Yeah, it was. What we did is we called the horse shows that were like USEF shows. We called them Class A shows, and actually, my horse trainer called the other horse shows. She called them dirt shows. And we did both. And so it was a big deal for us to go to the Class A shows. And then we eventually went to the regionals. And then I showed at the regionals a lot. And my very last year, we went to the U.S. Nationals. And actually, it was reserve national champion lady side saddle with high caliber. And I top 10'd in all the Western classes and the trail classes. So anyway, so I did both, but we did the local shows. And that was awesome because I could not ride him at first, and he would scream and I would cry. And she would just put me in another class and would say, figure it out. So she was, like I said, she was amazing. Amazingly tough. If I won, she would sing the words, happy birthday to me. That was a gift. She was one of those kind of horse trainers. So we did bigger shows, but we were such a small group, and he was unintentionally a once-in-a-lifetime horse and was exceptionally good by accident, total accident. So 1 year, my last year at the regionals, Region 3, I think we won 10 regional championships. And I had no clue what that even meant because I was just with her, and she was never happy with my performance. So I always had to be better. No matter what the ribbon was, which my students, if they listen to this, they're going to be like, well, that's familiar. So.
Hey, can we just go back? And if you don't want to talk about this a whole lot, we can pull it out. But when I've gone through some really hard stuff, I am amazed at how much I lean on the horses. And what did you do that? And if you did, what did it look like when you lost your brother?
When I lost Jeff, it was like the purpose of my whole life as a riding instructor, because the first person I called was my horse trainer. You know what I mean? I didn't even know my parents were dealing with the authorities. My parents were dealing with the doctors, and I was all of a sudden an only child. And so I'm sitting in the hospital, and they have me in this room, and there's a phone, and I called her. And it sounds so cheesy, but it's the truth. My horse was how I survived, in the sense of like my emotions came out on the horse. Like I kind of went through life, you know what I mean? But when I dealt with my grief, because I would be on him, and I would kind of like lose my temper, and my horse trainer just wouldn't have it. You know what I mean? And I would find myself crying, or I would find myself angry, or I would, the other thing is that like my parents were amazing but sad. And so like an example was for our first formal dance, my mom bought 4 dresses, and my horse trainer said, which one do you like? I said, this one. She said, well, you're taking the other 3 back. You're taking advantage of your mother. And I was like, excuse me? I said, Mom said I could have as many as I want. She said, no, her grief said that you could have as many as you want. You get 1 dress. And that really resonated with me, because that's where that is my whole view of what a riding instructor can be to somebody. You know what I mean? And so she was the balance, because my mom didn't, I didn't do much bad. I just had a smart mouth. I know everyone's surprised about that, but I leaned on it. And actually another part of the story is the day I'd married Evan is the day that High Caliber died, my horse, which like people are like, that is not real. And I'm like, it is so real because my horse trainer's granddaughter was supposed to be my flower girl and they didn't show up. None of them came to the wedding. And I'm like, how in the world? We got married in Springfield, Illinois.
Yeah.
And I said to Evan, we were going on our honeymoon, I said, something's wrong. You know what I mean? Because everybody kept making excuses.
Yeah.
And the deal is he died. And Evan said that my horse knew that Evan could take care of me now. And he was probably right, you know, but again, like and then Evan said to me, if we ever have our own farm, let's name it after him. So when you say you're leaning in on it, like I wanted that horse who helped me through the hardest part of my whole entire life to be, I mean, everywhere I am, High Caliber is, which I think is pretty special. So
it's very cool.
That's amazing.
Very cool. So what did it look like for you to go from school to becoming a professional horse trainer? What did those years look like?
Well, one, I had like at William Woods, I just had a great group of friends. So that was pretty awesome. And they were saddlebred people. And since I didn't know about saddlebreds as much, I would always like tag along. You know what I mean? Like I during the big Callaway Hill sales, you know, I tagged along with Allison Deerdorf and John Field and Evan Orr. And so, we all know horse people. It's like, if you can rub on a horse, you know, I didn't know what I was doing, but, so we did all of those kind of things. One of the things that everybody talks about is our adult clinic. Well, I worked at Renee Biggins' adult clinic. You know what I mean? So again, I tagged along. Ashley Eisenhower was an assistant trainer. You know what I mean? So they went to the Premier Place and different stuff like that. So I did different things like that. And I got to know Virgil Helm. And I got to know that because Virgil and Sandra helped raise Allison out in Oregon. And then I did not know whether I wanted to be a horse trainer or be a professor like Miss Lampy at William Woods. And so I got my master's at Columbia College in Columbia, Missouri. And I worked for Virgil part-time, which was great. And so that kind of, you know, and then I interned 2 summers with Peter and Kim Cowart. And that was once in a lifetime, and took care of Sweet Treat. And that was, and 10 years to the day, the second time I won the walk trot stake was when Kim won the walk trot stake. So that's pretty cool too, that I was the groom, and then 10 years later where it came from. So just a lot of really good opportunities. And then Virgil was the one though, he goes, Mary, he's like, you got to be around people you can talk to. And that's how I got my first job. And my first job, like real out of college, out of grad school, was at Cash Level Stables. Because he said Cash was a really good horseman, but he had a lot of personality. And so he thought that we might be a fit. That's kind of how it went. So
you kind of, you met Evan at William Woods, and you got to know other saddlebred people through him, it sounds like. Where did that, from working at Cash Level Stables and then meeting Evan, getting married, and then having High Caliber Stables and working with your spouse, what did that all like look like? How did you guys come about that? What was the design or the plan of all of that?
So the funny thing about that is I met Evan at William Woods, and I said to him exactly these words. He was at the dining hall, and I said, hello, I am Mary Jane Markham from Fall River Mills, California. I love college, don't you? And he was like, no, I'm Evan. And I'm like, I'm going to sit next to you. And he was like, okay. So I'm going to tell you, it wasn't love at first sight. He was like, oh my God. And then I was like, that guy is really tall and really thin. And he was like, this is going to really resonate well for Evan. I called him Ethiopian boy because he was like 145 pounds. And so Evan was like, I was like this really skinny guy. And I talked my ear off to him, and Evan was like, hello, you know, and he was around, but he was homesick, and I felt I had arrived. So it was very different. And then this group, it was Allison Deerdorf, Tiffany Wheeler, and she, you know, was Tiffany Wilkes at the time, John Fields. There were so many great people that we were around. And so we were this great group of friends, and Evan was a part of that. And so he was my best friend, and we actually both dated different people. And the story goes actually is that we both graduated from college. Evan went to law school for a whopping 2 weeks. And and was like, I'm going to be in a whole lot of debt and I don't like this. And so his good friend Mary moved him in and then moved him out. And then he kind of went to Illinois and then worked with Paula Briney for a while, and then worked at Glenmore Farms. And I think everybody knew that we should be together except for the two of us. And we were in a fight. And Evan said, we're either going to start dating or stop being friends because this isn't going to work out. And the rest is history. So then I told Evan I was going to North Carolina. Evan said, I am too. And I said that if you're going to be a horse trainer, you need to work for Peter and Kim Cowart. And I said, and you can't leave for a year. Because I figured if he really wanted to do it, Peter and Kim are so exceptional at what they do, but it wasn't going to be easy. We all know Peter Cowart is tough. But they are just good horse trainers and have a wonderful stock and all that good stuff like that, but not the easiest, and the expectation of working. And I know that was like, if Evan liked it, he was going to really like it. And so then we went there, and then he eventually transferred to Cash's, and we worked together. And I pouted every time he worked a horse. And Cash said, what is he supposed to do if you don't want him to touch a horse? And I pouted some more, and then I realized that he had to work some horses too. And then we got a little bit better at that part of it. And then taught lessons, worked our butts off, gained a lot of experience. And the time came, and we made a move, and we headed to Kernersville and leased a barn for a while, and the beginning of High Caliber Stables. So,
wow. And this isn't on the list of questions, but you've kind of alluded to it here a little bit. How do you, in day-to-day, kind of decide who's going to work what horse and who's going to instruct somebody? How do you figure out? And it sounds like maybe some of that kind of came in those early years that you.
Yeah, the early years. I mean, we all know I'm a little bit of a strong spirit and a control freak. So once we started working together, though, it's like basically once I decided that Evan, if I wanted him to be near me, I had to actually let him do something. You know what I mean? Andy was quite capable. It wasn't that, is more my problem. But now, I mean, it's like seamless between the two of us, because we kind of like, a horse comes in and one person long lines it or does something, and then we kind of go back and forth. And we are very much a tag team. You know what I mean? And we are like, I need a minute, you know what I mean? Or, hey, I need your help. And that is something that we are just 100% a team there. And now, if you were to ask who showed a horse or if somebody did something, we are for all of the good of what goes on for our customer, for the horse that we have. And also it's just like, it's so nice. I just love being his partner, and I love working with him. And we have two completely different strengths. And so now it's just like, it's a constant tag team. And then sometimes like he's projecting a horse for a specific reason and I'm projecting a horse,
Yep.
Which is funny though, too. We very much use William Wood's terms. And with the terms and what's going on, we use William Wood's terms, like projecting a horse, you know what I'm saying? But
Yep.
it's just a tag team constantly, and it works so well, and we feel very good about it. I think the thing we fight about the most is grounding horses. Like, you know what I mean? That's like, I mean, he thinks I'm always doing too much, and I think he's always never doing enough. So now that part we don't have figured out at all. You know what I mean? But the working them, and then the students, I usually take the lead. At the same time, though, when I need help with somebody, I'm like, Evan, this kid or this adult needs you for a minute. And I spew information, and then he, as we say, translates it, you know.
Okay.
So
And you've talked a little bit about the start of High Caliber, but what did those, I mean, I think everybody kind of knows what it looks
terrible.
like now, but what did those first few years as you were kind of ramping up?
The first years were completely awful. And the transition, I'm going to be honest again, because I think that people are afraid to. Leaving Cash's was hard. And it was a difficult transition for us and for the customers and for a lot of different things. We were young, and I think that I've learned to say this as the years go by. Everybody does the best they can with where they are in their lives at that time. But it was also 2008. We had a funny story is that, there was no money, you know what I mean? And we hadn't really planned to leave when we'd left. And we had a bunch of horses. And I said, Evan, look at how much money came in. He goes, look at the other side.
Yeah.
On the bills. And I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And also, he did the finances and I did more of the people and the work with it. And even with that being said, he went to the bank and he's like, but we have this much income. And they're like, ha, 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 Yep. And so we just did it off. Like our first horse show was ASHAV. And I think we had 4 switches, I think. And I know we had no curtains, you know what I mean? And we borrowed some curtains and different things like that. And one of the best lesson horses I'll ever touch in my life, Cindy Mignet sent us a lesson horse and his name was Lance. And she said, you can pay me whatever you want, just a little at a time. You know what I mean? And it was different people of generosity that would, let us make payments or do different things. Charles Leonard, where we leased the place, it was his tractor and it was his spreader. I mean, my God, we had no clue. And so it was we just worked hard and just kind of kept going. And the people that were with us, and if you know anything about Evan and I, Vicky Bird is a big piece of our lives. And she was with us every step of the way and so many other customers. And we just did with what we could. And it was, but the first couple years, they were definitely hard. The other thing was though, too, is the year that we left, I won the Three-Gaited Stake. And the second year, I won the Three-Gaited Stake again, but to be that young in your 20s and be a new training barn, that year, just so everyone knows, the very first class of Louisville, my mom had a horse named Dr. Decker and, she fell getting in the cart and she broke her arm and had surgery. And her arm was hanging by the side, the first class. And I'm like, oh my God, this is how high caliber starts. Yeah. And so we were not only charged with, we had this amazing horse of Our Charming Lady and, Jack and Donna Finch were incredible. Right. But that was our first year. You know what I mean? Talk about pressure. And we did it. I don't know how, but we did it. And, but it sure didn't start out, the pictures look great from Our Charming Lady, but my mom and Evan and I screaming at each other down the chute, with her broken arm and me hollering at Vicky to get the horse in the ring was not the start we had anticipated in 2009. It was crazy.
Wow. That's actually amazing to hear because I think a lot of people, they want to start barns and knowing from Sarah, like I went through that when she moved and started her own place. It's like people think it's this great, like you see all, like you said, you see all the pictures and you see all the ads and everything. You're like, wow, they must just be just doing awesome and everything. And then it's this whole other side of it that's like, no, it's...
Yes. Yeah. Then there's the other stories.
Yep.
So
the real
and
stories.
My mom also said, tape me in. And Evan started screaming at her, Debbie Markham, what do you think? You're going to kill people in there. So, but yeah, that's why I think what you all are doing is amazing because there's all different sides to the starting of a business. But and I know financially, had I known the details, I don't think I would have emotionally survived. And that Evan carried that load the whole time. So
what a blessing those people. I mean, I look at like when we started.
Yes.
And the clients that we had,
yes.
I think we still have 5 or 6 of those people that came with us the first time. Or like we had Durant's who gave us 10 clients and she kind of threw us out the door and said, fly, like it's, you should do it. But just, you can't, it would be so hard to do it without those people who prop you up.
They built stalls and it's like the place that we're in now when we moved 3 years later. My funny story about that is I cried and I said, Evan, I'm not moving in until everything's painted. And he showed me a quote of $85,000 for paint. And I was like, okay, I guess that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? And he's like, this is what we can afford. So shut up and get to work. You know what I mean? And it was like, we just
all grab a paintbrush and they're right there.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's like, but it's a funny, I mean, this place, like, I mean, every board, every fence, the lounge, we had the lounge and we did the lounge, but we never did the inside because there was no money.
Yeah.
And people would go like, when are you going to do the lounge? And I said, when we get money. So
You got to
and
sell a horse.
it's piece by piece, so
You know,
anyway.
IASFA has always been more than 3 horse shows a year. We are a community united by life-changing moments, lifelong friendships, and the incredible show horses who bring us together. What we enjoyed today exists because members like you believed in sharing this passion at a grassroots level, and today we proudly continue that legacy. Please consider becoming a member by going to iaspha.com. While you're there, don't forget to nominate your horses for year-end awards, maybe consider becoming a horse show sponsor, or maybe even a media partner. Like we say, we do all of this for our members, but we can't do it without them. And that means we can't do it without you.
You have 2 kids, which I think most people know. You have
Yeah.
a full lesson, like you guys do the show, the big A shows, the big time shows. You have a full lesson barn of lesson kids. You go to Academy Nationals, or you send your staff to do that. How do you come up with the time with all the training horses, your kids, the lesson kids? You also do, I think I've seen and I've read your newsletter. Do you do that weekly or monthly? Like, how do you fit
Weekly.
Oh my gosh. I was just starting to think about maybe I should do like a monthly newsletter. So you do it weekly. How do you find the
do.
time to do everything that you do?
It starts out with, number one, I'm crazy. And I've learned to own that. And number two, I have the best team I could ever have. You know what I mean? Like it's a divide and conquer. You know what I mean? And and you do have to relinquish a little bit of control. And it's funny that I'm saying that because I feel like such a hypocrite because it's like, I say that I do that, but I'm in between of it. But like, for example, we do the breeding. Well, that's Christine and Evan, Christine Thomas, our office manager. And we also, though, I think one thing that's I think that people don't know about us is like Christine, Evan, and I meet and we have a finance meeting once a month. And everybody knows like when the finance meeting comes, but it's all almost like the whole barn. You know, I mean, like we discuss everything and Christine gives us these sheets of papers and sometimes it lasts an hour and sometimes it lasts 3 hours. You know what I mean? On just kind of like regrouping as far as that's concerned. And then we have lesson team meetings because we have Meredith Ross and Abby Jones and Lauren Blue, and they do the writing program. And so it's become like kind of like we've really gotten ourselves organized because it's either that or go insane. You know what I mean? And then the problem is I want everything a certain way. And I don't know if I like this podcast. I've been entirely honest with you all. But it's like, so you kind of got to pick your sections. And one of the things is like you mentioned Academy Nationals. You know, Evan and I went with Cash Level Stables and then we went on our own, you know what I mean? And then we had, Meredith, and then that passion, I realized I can't do it all. You know what I mean? And it was something that I wanted. I believe in it for our riding program and I believe in it for our riding instructors. And then I had to say, like, have a heart to heart with myself. You know what I mean? And it's become, in my opinion, something I'm so proud of. And they do such an exceptional job. And I feel like they wear the name High Caliber and representing myself and Evan at the very best, but I think they take it very seriously. And if they didn't, I would not support what they do, in all honesty. But it has taken me having to understand that I'm not going to make it to Academy Nationals. You know what I mean? And that I am going to get ready for the American Royal, and that it is more of Evan's passion, the young horses. I love it when he does the work and then I get them when they're broke. So anyway, that's kind of what we've done because it is a lot. It's a lot. And it's, the weekly happenings is my passion. I love to write. It usually happens at random times and random ideas. So, but that's something I think it's probably one of those things that I refuse to let go of. And I think it's good for my soul as much as I hope it helps other people.
Can you talk about your kids too, like how they fit into all of this?
So my kids are about the greatest thing ever. And they are, they were born into this. And I've always said, they are not the center of our world. They're a big part of our world because I want them to see how hard Evan and I work and to understand that some parts of our business are going to take us away from them. But then when we're with them 100%. And because of that, like this weekend, when no one could get in and they helped us feed, I feel like they get to see their parents doing what they love, but working really hard. And they are so flexible. And I have a wonderful support system of my mom and my dad. And we also have a nanny. And that sounds, I don't think people realize that is something that is so important because that consistency of care for them when we're gone has been wonderful, and it's something that I would sacrifice anything before I would sacrifice having that consistent care for them when we're gone and their school, because I want them to know that school is important and I don't want them to feel just drug around. And I love that my barn family loves them, but I don't think that my kids are their job.
Can you talk a little bit about the your perspective? You're teaching a lot of other people's kids, and then now, and I know especially it seemed like at the very beginning you were trying very hard, I don't know how successfully, to be just your kid's parent and not their riding instructor. And what does that look like, kind of having sat on both sides of that?
I think it has been I think that having kids is just like being a judge. Once you do it, you have a different perspective, because I remember looking at parents and being like, my kids won't do this. You know what I mean? And now I'm like, crap, I am so sorry. I judged you. I was wrong. This is hard. And right now we have a saying all the time with EJ and Ellis and any kids at high caliber, they spit the bits or they're running to the middle, which means there's nothing left, And so when EJ and Ellis spit the bits, I'm like, oh, for God's sake, this is how these parents felt. You know what I mean? I think that it has gained, I'm lucky though. I'm an older parent. I didn't think that at the time because it took me a long time to get EJ and Ellis here. But that kind of age has been good because I've got to watch people raise their kids, you know what I mean? And I've been a part of it, but it's not been me. But I think that the perspective is too. The one thing that I try to do with the girls when they teach EJ and Ellis, and Evan and I believe in this like 100% with anything, and I think it's also being a horse trainer, is that like if I go, our example is if I go to the bakery and I order a cake, it is not my job to tell that person how to bake that cake. It is my job to say, I would like this cake and this is what I want with it. And then you tell me if that makes sense. Like for example, that cake won't work in that environment. You know what I mean? I don't need to tell you to do it. And I try to instill the same confidence in the instructors when they teach EJ and Ellis. One thing for me that is easy though, is that already it has been, I am watching what riding horses does for children, because I have watched it with EJ and Ellis and the work ethic that it has. And so I'm like, thank God what I've thought all these years really is the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like really is the truth with that. And I think the thing is though, is that I think about what my job is and what the instructor's job are. We help teach sometimes, but I will say they primarily get taught by Meredith and Abby. You know what I mean? Right now, as they transition to a show horse, they transition just like everybody else, where I'm doing some more teaching, as is Evan. But I feel like I said, I think the part of when they misbehave is where I am embarrassed that I judged parents. because it's way harder than you think. And also, one thing I've learned, every person is different. The way we teach EJ and the way we teach Ellis is like night and day difference. EJ Orr loves mama screaming at him. He thinks the harder I yell, the better it is. Ellis Orr is devastated. Like, what is wrong with you? And so that's been good. As a riding instructor, as a mother, I'm like, are you kidding me? We're digging in right now. You know what I mean? And she's like, we are not digging in. I don't like it when you yell at me. And EJ thinks it's great.
You were talking about like all the things that you're doing and you've got on your plate and the staff that you've got. And besides writing the newsletter, I'm like, what the hell are you doing taking on adult camp? And I've been there and seen it. And that is no small undertaking.
Yeah, but it's everybody. I mean, it's a whole group of people and we do it year round. You know what I mean? And what
but
I
your
do,
people are as busy as you. Like
know.
they're also working there. But you decide every spring to put that. How many riders come to adult camp?
Well, it started with like 7, you know what I mean? And, this year's real big. I will not say the number. I'm not ready to. So, yeah.
I was there.
It's always
50, wasn't it?
It's and it's more than that this year. Well, because I try to get as many people as I can in, and then, but the problem is it fills my cup. I just love to see people come together and remember how much they like to ride and get to see people from around the country. And then it's like this camaraderie that you have no matter what horse show you go to. If there's somebody that's come to our adult clinic, it's just the greatest thing ever. And so for me, remember, you got to go back to losing my brother. It's been about relationships, and it's been about what this has made an impact on me. So it's like, how do you not do it? Why wouldn't it be the greatest thing ever? And then my team is as crazy as I am. So they get excited and they are like, oh God, okay. Oh, all right, Mary, you know? And they just look down when they want to say no. And then I know I've probably gone too far. Or Evan has to come in and he's like, Mary, that you're freaking him out again. So that's usually how it goes. You either do that, you know, or I'll get an email or a text, because I'm not an easy person to say no to sometimes. So
this stable-minded episode is brought to you in part through the support of Sold by Sunday. Are you looking to buy, sell, or promote in the show horse world? Sold by Sunday is your one-stop digital destination for weekly online auctions featuring show horses, equine embryos, stud services, tack, buggies, trailers, and even equine art and collectibles. Or use Show Horse Blast to promote your horse's achievements through their powerful email and social media exposure. Whether you're selling, shopping, or celebrating, Sold by Sunday's got you covered. Go to www.showhorsesales.biz or search Sold by Sunday to get started today. So on top of all of that, are you willing to talk a little bit about the health challenges that you have?
Absolutely.
So as you're taking all of this on, and and then I, at least from a distance, and maybe a couple comments that I have either had directly from you or I've seen on social media, like it not only was super scary, but it is also drastically altered how you get to do your job, at least for a while.
Yeah, huge. It's one of those things though that I had open heart surgery, and which is still, I've got to be honest, when I say that out loud, it doesn't feel real. Like that's the honest to goodness truth. But and
how did you find out that you needed this?
So what happened was I have a very good friend that had a heart attack that's around my age. And she had discussed about my, don't worry, that's Evan. The one person that never talks just talked.
Just wait. My
So,
dogs that are quiet right now are going to just start running in the background
that,
sometime in this. And
that's
so,
right. That's
yeah,
right. Yeah.
the ones that
So,
never do start in the middle of
yeah.
the most important part.
So one of my dearest friends in the horse business had a heart attack. And I had taken some new medication and I didn't feel right. It was right before Louisville, haha, like of course. And I was driving to Louisville and I did not feel right. And I kept thinking about my friend. And I'm like, number one, if anybody we put so much pressure on ourselves. And I'm going to say this, that is a lot of this is self-made. Like I need to say, I would love to say that my customers put that on me. Um, through this experience, I put that pressure. I put a lot of it on me. You know what I mean? It's my expectation. I want to
Yep.
please and I want to do well with all of that. And anyway, I'm like, I might just be having a panic attack. You know what I mean? And then I thought, I will never forgive myself.
Yep.
I just kept thinking about EJ and Ellis. I have health insurance and I don't feel right. And I just had a friend that is way healthier than me have a scare. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
we got to Louisville and I literally freaked out and was like, it's not getting better. And I walked around and I will never be able to thank Melissa, who works for Neil Visser. I walked over, and also just a side funny note is I had a bloodshot eye, and she's like, something's wrong with your eye. I'm like, my eye is not the problem, Melissa. And so we've been neighbors at Louisville for a long time. And she's like, are you okay? And I said, I'm not okay. I need your truck. And she's like, what? And I said, our trucks are hooked up. Something is wrong. She's like, you don't look well. Is your eye okay? And I'm like, it's not my eye. And so she said, you can take the truck. And I went to Evan and I was crying and I said, something's wrong. And so we got in the truck and Melissa had South African music blaring. And I called my friend and she told me what hospital to go to. And I went to a great cardiac emergency room and they just started doing all the tests. And, the minute I got there, I felt better because I'm like, they're going to test me one way or the other, and it showed I did not have a heart attack, you know what I mean? Which I was great. And I'm like, well, neurotic Mary has hit the end and now she's had a panic attack and that's where we're at. And then they came in and backstory, during COVID, when I had COVID, I had some like heart flutters, went to a cardiologist. They found out that I have, instead of 3 aortic sleeves, I have 2, and one of them is leaky. So I've been to a cardiologist, and that's they said that, when I would age, I would eventually need a mechanical valve. And so we always knew that. And but they came in and they said, well, you didn't have a heart attack. But when you go home, and they said it very calmly, we need you to meet with a thoracic surgeon. And Evan goes, come again? And they're like, you have an aortic aneurysm. And then they said the size, and the size has to be, if it's at a 5, that means that you need to have surgery because there's a huge risk of you having an aneurysm, and it actually rupturing. And Evan's like, we know about the sleeve. And they're like, no, sir, like, this is real. This is happening. And I was like in shock pretty much. And then we talked about and I'm like, do you understand what's getting ready to happen in the next 7 days? And this is where, yet again, thank you for the horse business. A customer of ours is a cardiologist. And my general practitioner is also a customer. And it's the people which is a huge thing. And of course, we were texting with them as we were in the cardiac. And they said, you can stay, you're going to need to stay calm. And I texted my general practitioner and I said, you're going to have to drug me. And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I can do this, but I'm going to have to be tranquilized. And so in came some anxiety medicine and a lot of tears. And we made it through the week. And after that, came home and I've had open heart surgery, and it has been yet again the most spectacular team. And quite frankly, I think we only missed 1 horse show, and we've kept going. And I just the best customers and the best support system you could ever ask for. And a whole new perspective on my life.
I know you're running at
Yeah.
150%, and that's on a slow day. What does it look like, and what does the struggle feel like for you to actually have to like gear down to be taking care of yourself?
It was, well, one, the best word is horrible. But then at the end, I'm so thankful I'm here and that they found that aneurysm by accident. They did not find it because like my symptoms were probably just a panic attack. Do you see what I'm saying? Or the medication that they changed me on that just made me feel kind of funny. You know what I mean? So that's like, I guess you feel like your gift. And then what it's done is that it has made me realize that I am not superhuman. And it was I had my surgery on September 11th, and I have not. The last time I rode a horse was in the Gaited Stake at Louisville, and so I long line and I jog, and it's hard, but I think being dead is harder. So that's why it's like kind of, I mean, it sounds bad, but you're like, all right, I'm going to have a choice here. And I'm kind of like being a black and white person with that. But it's like, and then it has also helped me understand the strengths of others I'm surrounded by. I do think I'm learning to be a little bit more effective. And then the silver lining of this is that, when you don't feel good with like I can't overcome my physical when I get tired. Like, you know what I mean? It's something that like my body's like, that's it. You know what I mean? And then the fear I'm scared enough that I won't break the rules, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
but then there's also this beauty on the other side of it that you're like, wow, how blessed am I? And then I definitely do not think I will ever look at a horse show the same. I got to be honest. I think that I will always, I mean, I'm competitive to the core, but when I get ramped up, I'm like, I know what matters, you know? And not only do I know what matters, but at this stage in my life, the cardiac rehab, the people I've been in contact with, when you see so many people that have health issues, your health is your wealth. And again, that sounds cheesy, but it really is the truth. And so that's been a community of people I've not ever been in contact with. And I'm very grateful for them and very determined to be healthy.
And then what does your future look like? When will you be able to get back to riding?
So I think I'm pretty close to starting to get back on a school horse. Meredith says she doesn't want to watch. And I think everybody's just kind of scared. And my stamina is back so much. And
Okay.
I'm starting to feel ready. You know what I mean? The hardest part is your sternum is broken. So my heart's doing well and everything around it is doing, all of my body's doing well. But a broken sternum means that it is definitely healing, but it is not completely healed. And that's where it's like, it's amazing all your body parts and how they all come together. You know, you talk about core. Let me tell you, I can tell you about core and arm strength. You know what I mean? So anyway, it's doing well, but it's, I like at the American Royal, I didn't watch Evan more courses, and that was hard because I knew I would not make it through I knew I wouldn't make it through the day. I knew I needed to rest in the morning to make it for the show sessions, to be a good coach. Okay. And I know this is a big shocker, but Evan and the guys survived. I'm not quite sure how, but they did. And so I think I'm proud of that, but it kind of hurt my feelings too. So.
Oh, that's awesome. This episode is brought to you in part to the generous support of the Monarch Show Series National Championship. It's their efforts to build a better, stronger, and more inclusive horse industry that makes projects like this podcast possible. Make sure to join us at the historic Illinois State Fairgrounds in Springfield, Illinois. And for more information, go to monarchshowseries.com. Monarch. There's a place for everyone in the kingdom.
So going back to all your health challenges and your surgery and everything, and then you guys added with your youth club, the High Caliber Hot Shots, that's huge hot shot horse show. I mean, I was every single day I was going on social media was like, we added another person, we added another amazing thing. Like what was the process of that, like coming to that? Because did you guys do that every year, or is this a new thing? But
so that's kind of I love that question, because you said, did we do it every year? And I think that one of the things that I think that is important just in general is that we've done a fun show since we've been High Caliber. It has built through the years, you know what I mean? And it has become one thing Bob was asking about, like every single one of our, like team members, they kind of have their passion project. Like, for example, Meredith Ross heads up our fun show. And so she's got a lot of me in her. So, bigger and better. She just loves the challenge. You know what I mean? And like you were talking about the adult clinic. Well, Christine Thomas heads that up. So, she does not have a lot of me in her, but she's crazy enough to always, be up for the challenge. And she's like, super organized. And then like Abby does the hot shots, and she also doesn't have a lot of me in her, but she is so passionate about like the ground root, the roots. She's just tolerant of me. You know what I mean? So anyway, but the fun show was that actually had a lot to do with Miss Lampy and William Woods, and what William Woods has brought to my life. Abby's a William Woods graduate. Lauren Blue is a William Woods graduate. And so Miss Lampy was like, we're not just in need of support, we're in need of money. And then she's like, people talk about it, but if you know Miss Lampy, she puts a fire in me sometimes. And it was like, oh, everybody talks about it. And I'm like, bring it, Miss Lampy. We're going to show you talk about it. And so I told Meredith, I said, I've got this idea. And she's like, seriously, Mary? And I come up with the idea, and then we take it and we run with it together. And so, and then I believe in the fundamentals and the foundation of riding. And Bert Honecker and Miriam is a William Woods grad, but Bert and Miriam, they love Epic Kiss the way I love Our Charming Lady. And people probably don't even, Our Charming Lady's a ways back now, but there's Sedgefield's Legacy and all of those wonderful horses that she's had that have had great show ring careers. And he's, of course, a stallion. But the way that Bert is passionate and Miriam are passionate about Epic Kiss, you don't know if you don't ask. And by God, I was like, I'm going to ask him. You know what I mean? And it just kept kind of like snowballing with these ideas. And Meredith just never told me no. I mean, I think she wanted to, but she didn't. And then then there are certain things that I didn't do until, like, some things are my like last minute ideas. And she's like, do you think we have a plan yet, Mary? And it's like, not yet. So, but that's where and I feel like, and you have a writing program and you know this, there's just so much strength in the foundation of what we do if we share, you know what I mean? And so over 300 people that day got to see Epic Kiss in person. How cool is that? I mean, that's pretty awesome, if you ask me. And we raised a ton of money. And I think it ended up being like $150,000, which I'm really, really proud of. And hopefully this podcast and hopefully our advertising, people will ask for our blueprint of our fun show, and they'll do it all over the country, and they'll find a cause that they're passionate about. And we're the beginning of something.
This episode is made possible in part through the generous support of the Aschenbrenner family's Dreammakers LLC and their ongoing commitment to breeding and showing of American saddlebred horses. Their belief in equine versatility and public service, whether it be at the local grassroots, regional horse show, or the National Association level, strives to create an equine community with room for every horse and all riders. You can learn more by going to dreammakers-llc.com or search Dreammakers LLC on Facebook. And before I get to the last topic that we were going to talk about, this feels like a good place to. You are very much a person who is a doer. And anybody who listens to this podcast is probably tired of it, and I should probably be tired about it. But there's such a difference in talking about something or talking about a problem, or you oughta or you should, and you're one of those people who does. What makes you do that? Is that your personality? Is that your commitment? Like, what makes you step up and
Yeah.
go, I'm going to raise a bunch of money for William
Yeah.
Woods?
Yeah. I think it starts with Dan and Debbie Markham and my parents, and that they were, just unbelievably driven and always said, do what you love, and work hardworking people. And then it filtered into finding something I loved, and it filtered into Shirley Hall. And then it was William Woods, and also not just Gail Lampe, but Laura Ward and Jean Krause. They were a big piece of it as well. And so I was just so lucky that each layer, and I mean, and the truth is the death of my brother changed my life, but it changed it in a trajectory that there's been so much good because of that. You know what I mean? I would give anything to have him back. At the same time, he's with everything that I do. And I guess that purpose, and then finding something that helped me through that and wanting to share that. And as far as the doing, my mom says I was a pain from the minute I was born, and said that I was driven. You know what I mean? So I think that is a little bit of me, but also I'm a nobody from the horse business. I have no family connections. I have nothing to do. And it's just been a lot of willpower and a lot of drive, and everything I've done, it's like, if you work hard and you try hard, it can happen. You know what I mean? And so I think, and then my other thing is, I believe so much in what riding lessons do and what horses can bring to people's lives, and what William Woods did for me, that I have to put my best effort forth. And now, with what's happened with the health struggles, it's like, I'll be damned. If I fail, at least I can say I tried. That's the biggest thing. And that I want to be a cause for something that's bigger than me. And that's even like at our barn, the success is all of the people at High Caliber, not just me. I'm just the loud one. So, but I just hate not doing something. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
and then, like I said, somebody makes me mad, and then I'll be damned if I don't show them. So Miss Lampe told me
Yep.
that they needed money, and by God, I was going to prove her wrong. And that doesn't sound very good, but it's the truth.
So let's talk a little bit about some more people you're trying to prove wrong. And that might not be the right way to head into this.
No,
but,
it's perfect. It's perfect.
Because you, again, don't have enough on your plate, and you have decided to step up and champion this Masters division.
Yes.
So can you talk to us about what it is and what you're trying to accomplish and what you need us to do?
Okay. Number one, I did not come up with the master's classes. Classes for people, in for what is in the Saddlebred Association, and what age I've put with it is 60 and over, is not something new. It's something that's in the quarter horses. It's something that is, there's different ages of definitions of masters, but there's something in it for the Arabians and the Morgans. I always say, like golfing, they've got seniors golf and different things like that. What I see is also, we have a bunch of people that are have been lifelong equestrians and lifelong saddlebred enthusiasts and lifelong saddle seat people. And as a good friend of mine, Bob, said, it is a lot easier to keep people in the business than it is to bring somebody into the business. And I think that this division is so important, because I think there is a difference between an 18-year-old and a 60-year-old, and not in heart and not in mind, but in stamina and physical ability, and also need of what kind of horse they need. And so I think that is what I want is for horse shows that are big enough that they can carry, the load of the classes, for us to have a 5-year plan, because I believe it takes a while for things to take off, and have master's classes for country pleasure and show pleasure. 5-gaited show pleasure, 3-gaited, and 5-gaited. And what I foresee happening is I don't think it's going to take 5 years. I think it's fair to ask for it because I know it will need to grow, but that it gives spots for people and horses and legacies to stay competitive, to stay apart, and to feel apart. And I'm strong about this because I have a lot of those customers in my barn. But as I age myself, I see a place that can add supply and demand for our industry.
And I will say that the scary part, as you're talking and you're talking about 60 and over, and I'm like, yeah, that's something that we need for these people. And I'm like, oh, son of a gun. Like, I'm about to be one of those people. It's not that far off in the future.
Yeah.
I've got the heart. I want to do it, but as you're getting older, there's the physical piece of it does come into play.
That's right. And I think there's room in our industry.
We want these people to show, and I think it's hard. Like, we have a woman who, she didn't start in this, but she came in and she asked Sarah if she wanted to take lessons, and then eventually she wanted to buy a show horse. That woman now has 2 horses in training, but I feel like it would be hard for her to be like, and she's very new, she's showed a little bit, but to be like, okay, now you got to show against this 20-year-old who's been riding their whole life and who knows, like, like you said, it's a huge gap, and it is hard when you want them to show against these people, or younger people have been showing all their lives, and you don't want them to deter or not go to shows because they feel like they can't compete. I think we don't want that to happen. We want these people to show for as long as they can, or as long as they're able to.
Yeah. And the other piece of it is consistency. There are master's classes out there. They're few and far between. And so for people to say, I'm going to want to show in the master's classes, they need to have it more than just one horse show, if that makes sense. And that's kind of what I'm campaigning for. You have to have consistency. Look at what Junior Exhibitor Park has become. Look at what Walk and Trot Pleasure has become. But they have to be offered consistently for these people to say, hey, I'm going to stick in this. I'm going to keep it. And also remember, that also, a lot of these older people will have legacies, and that's their grandchildren that are going to come to the barn with them and be a part of it. And so I don't feel like it is a delusion of a class. I think it's an addition of something that can make us nothing but better. I was lucky enough to be on the ground floor of watching the Junior Exhibitor Park class get created and start with 1 person and then 2 people. And now look at it. You know what I mean? And it's just like the Walk and Trot Pleasure. We need to help ourselves. And the other thing is we have to stand up, and it has to be consistently offered for people to want to have that horse in training like what you're talking about.
So what do you need from all of us around the country?
I've really kind of taken it on myself as far as reaching out for sponsorships, because I know horse shows need money. So I will reach out to people about sponsorships, and already have a lot of good sponsors, but always could use more. But I need horse shows, and I need horse show committees to add these classes. And one of the things that I'm fighting is people say that horse shows are too long or you're diluting a class. And fighting's not the right word, but those are probably my 2 biggest challenges. And what they have to do is like one of the things that when I was working with Christine Thomas on this, we were like, well, it really only adds a couple classes to each session, even if it's a Wednesday show, but like a horse show that starts on Wednesdays. But that you look at your show schedule, and this is something that you're like, all right, let's give it a shot, and let's give it enough time to grab hold. But no, this year it might be small or it might be canceled, but give it, like I said, that's the 5-year plan, because to me, it's going to take a minute. You know what I mean? But when I've watched the master's classes in our area, got to be honest, they've not been the smallest class by any means, and they sure aren't. They're sure nice horses, you know what I mean? And it's not something you have to be a part of though either. Like if you're like, I don't want to be in the master's class, I want to be in a regular amateur class, great. Or have two, you know? That just gives people different places to show. So that's what I need. I need people to be open-minded. I need them to be willing to add this to their schedule if they're a big enough horse show to carry it, and be willing to look bigger than this year.
And now the final 5, our favorite 5 questions for our favorite stable-minded people. So
Okay.
First question, if you were not into show horses, what would you be doing?
I would want to be an organizer or a baker. I love to bake, but I also love to organize.
All right. To some
Oh,
degree, we all have a horse addiction. What do you think is at the root of yours?
I read that one and it was I struggled with that one. Relationships, and also the other one is I love a challenge, and I don't feel like you can ever get it right with the horse. So you can always be better.
Cool. Big picture, what is the greatest gift that your involvement in horses has given you?
Oh, friends and family. Just, I've met some of the most amazing people through horses. And I just love horses though, too. I've been able to touch some of the greatest horses I never dreamed I would be around. But not just nice show horses. A school horse is as valuable to me as a show horse.
What is the biggest risk you've taken and how did it pay off?
Going out on my own. Hardest and best thing I ever did. Starting our own business.
And lastly, other than the master's class, what is something that you are currently excited about?
Well, I'm super excited about adult clinic. That is always something I'm excited about. Because it's like my favorite time of year. And I'm not allowed to say the master's classes. And I'm really, really excited for this upcoming year because we've got a lot of kids coming out of academy to show. And I'm excited because also for personally, EJ started riding gaited horses, and it is the cutest and funniest thing you've ever seen, and seeing Ellis ride in a suit. So a lot of good stuff.
A huge thanks to Mary Orr for sitting down with us today, as well as for her candor, her perspective, and the real work she and her team are doing to move the horse industry forward. Now put down your phone and pick up your reins. And we'll see you back here next time.